One day away is the start of the playoffs for the Indiana Pacers as they play the Bucks. Spend a lot of the week talking about the challenges the Bucks present, the Giannis of it all with Bucks people. Let's talk about some Pacers advantages they'll have in this series. Tyler Smith from Indy Sports Legends and the Journal Review is going to join us to talk about all that today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Friday. Congrats, you made it through the week, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, awesome episode coming with Tyler Smith as we dive into what we think some of the advantages the Pacers will have are in this series. Spent a lot of the week talking about the challenges, the differences from last year, how Giannis obviously makes it way different. Haven't spent as much time talking about where the Pacers' bread and butter could come from in this series today. We get into all that, the Haliburton of it all, the front court matchups. Can the Pacers' depth be an advantage? The style of play of both these teams and how all of that could manifest itself in Pacers Bucks. It's going to be a banger. There was a Damian Lillard update. I said I wouldn't talk about those until we know he's playing or not. You can look into that if you want. That certainly matters for the series. Let's just jump right in to some of the Pacers' advantages in this series with Tyler Smith. 2 days left between today and the start of the playoffs for the Pacers. 1 day left when this comes out. And it's time to talk about what advantages the Pacers might have in the series. I talked about challenges and questions. The Bucks people came on and said, hey, that Giannis guy's pretty good. That's going to be different from last year. And yet, the Pacers won 50 games. Their offense is really good, and they are covered by one Tyler Smith, who's going to help me get to the bottom of the Pacers' advantages in this series for Indy Sports Legends and the Journal Review. Tyler, are you so psyched for the playoffs?
I'm excited. Yeah, it feels like the last playoff rounds were not long ago, but it's been a full year and we're ready to go. It's been a up and down season, but it should be a lot of fun. This is what fans have been waiting for.
Here's how you know it was a good playoff run last year. It hasn't been a full year. It's barely been 10 months. They almost played into June last year. I'm so excited. The play-in has had some bad games, but the Warriors-Grizzlies game in particular got me like, oh, yeah, all right, let's go. I've spent all week talking about things that will be difficult for the Pacers, and that sells them short. They have a better record. The betting odd lines say they're the favorites, although the recent Damian Lillard news might change that. They're going to have a lot of advantages in this series that they can go to or try to go to routinely to get wins. Of course, the obvious one being home court advantage. I have lots of things I could go to, but Tyler, I would like you to go first. What big advantage do you see the Pacers having in the series?
Yeah, you mentioned it. It may be kind of the lazy answer, but it's built right into the the phrase home court advantage.
Yeah.
I know that having the best player on the court like the Bucks do and having, that experience that he's had in the past presents a lot of challenges for the Pacers. But this team in particular, I think, benefits more from home court than a lot of teams. I mean, we saw last year they won all 6 games at home in the first 2 rounds. Then they went to, down to the wire with Boston in both of those games without Haliburton. We've seen this year how many games they've won they had no business winning. It's just like the home crowd wills them to victory. They won, I think it was 13 of the last 14 at home, games that mattered where they were playing guys. It's just Haliburton himself is different at home. He's a 20-10 guy this year compared to like 16.5, 8.5 on the road. It's just different. And one of the big advantages that doesn't get talked about enough is if you've got 4 home games instead of 3, you can afford to drop 1 at home and then you only need to get 1 on the road. I mean, simple math there, but it's like if you're starting on the road, a lot of times those teams need to find a way to win 2 because they're probably going to drop 1 at home. I could absolutely see the Bucks winning a game in Indy, but I have a hard time seeing them win twice at the Fieldhouse. So if the Pacers do drop 1 at home, then they just got to get 1 of those 3 in Milwaukee. So a big advantage, home court advantage.
Yeah, that both of their series last year that they won prove your point. Like they won twice in Milwaukee, which was massive for that series. And then the very rare everyone wins at home all the time against the Knicks series. Like that doesn't happen that often. Like game 3 was pivotal in both, and they were at home for both of those, and that kind of helped set the tone. But those are rare. Like usually it's the home team wins the first 2 games, and then game 3 can seal it one way or the other, or Game 6 is an ender for a team that's won 3 at home, but the Pacers survived both those last year. Now they have the advantage side of that, and I agree that I think it'll be hard to go 4-0 at home in a series. It's possible. They were very good at home last year in the playoffs, but they've proved last year they can win in Milwaukee. The Bucks are better this year and beat them twice in Milwaukee during the regular season, but that's a huge advantage. And you were at the last home game. Like, I wanted to ask guys about this because, look, I'm at the game. Like, I can tell you how the crowd matters, and like, there's been studies about what percent advantage you get from home court advantage, whether it's that, whether it's officiating, whatever. But like, that's what I wanted to hear from them. It's like, what else? What am I missing that makes it better to play at home? And like, some of the answers were cracking me up. Traffic patterns, the traffic patterns of your city. Obviously, sleeping in your own bed is a big deal. It's just more routine. When you're getting to where at what time. It's not unfamiliar. You're not, all that is really valuable. And they have that one extra time in the first round, which with a better Bucks opponent across from them, I think is going to be a big deal. You covered the Pacers back when they had home court advantage before. This is my first time. Like, it was a big deal for them in 13-14, right?
For sure. And that was actually when I started. So, when I got this gig, at the end of the 2014 season is the last time they hosted, which is wild to think about.
Yeah.
Obviously, they would have hosted in 2020, but it was in the bubble, that Miami series. But that's crazy to think of all that we've kind of experienced, of the different rosters and all the different coaches, to not have a single game one to open a playoff series since then is pretty wild. But yeah, those comments were funny. Traffic patterns and sleep patterns and all that. I think from a basketball side, the defensive side of things, where the crowd's yelling and you're kind of, and just obviously the shooting background and everything, the comfort zone of all of that. But it's been different for the Pacers, compared to a lot of teams, I think, in their home building.
I agree. I did laugh at the traffic patterns part too. I was like, that helps me. Certainly, I leave later, going to home games and road games. Yeah, my first playoff game ever was the Bojan game, which was a game 3, right? Like, I've never been to a game 1 in Gamebridge before in my life. I've been to game 1s of many series before. It's going to be awesome. Okay, here is one Pacers advantage that I am very interested in this series. We've talked a lot with Bucks people, among Pacers people. How are the Pacers going to guard Giannis? That's a good question. I'm very curious about that. However, no one has asked, how are the Bucks going to guard Tyrese Haliburton? And I find that to be not as big of a Giannis question, obviously, but a major question, right? If Dame does play, Dame's a very good player. His defense is not very good, right? Giannis has guarded Siakam usually throughout this series this year. I'd imagine that's how they'll start things off. Brook Lopez seems like in that case he'll be on Turner. That's easy. So that leaves, assuming the same starting lineup for the Bucks, a trio of Taurean Prince, Kyle Kuzma, and Ryan Rollins to open the game, or Dame, on Tyrese Haliburton, unless they change their starting 5. And either way, their best other available defender outside of the 3 I just said is probably Gary Trent, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the Pacers are, not that Gary Trent's a bad defender. Taurean Prince is decent. They've tried that before. That seems like something the Pacers will be like, awesome. We should hammer Haliburton, get him the ball. Whoever Kuzma or Rollins is guarding, set a bunch of screens. Like, it feels not that the Bucks are like a bad defensive team. They're not. They have a lot of size. Their zone has given the Pacers a ton of trouble this season. But I do feel like there's going to be some sort of matchup switching and lever pulling from the Bucks that the Pacers can take advantage of. The Bucks barely were a better defensive team than the Pacers this year, and they've kind of come on and off, and they've changed their roster a lot. Like, I do think the Pacers will have matchup advantages they can exploit, and it all starts with someone has to guard Haliburton, and they don't have like an awesome premier perimeter stopper on that team.
Yeah, and Haliburton has mega monster numbers against, growing up in Wisconsin and having that background. But he's got huge numbers against him, and that could be one of the reasons, them trying to figure out how to guard him. And I especially feel like, again, back to the home thing, I feel like if they try to take the ball out of his hands and double him early, or try to do, throw different things at him, the Pacers, especially at home, will just, hockey style passing, moving the ball around, find an open shooter. And then you got guys like the run that Neesmith's been on. He could be huge corner threes, just finding ways to knock down some threes if they try to take Haliburton out of it. But so far in the past, they haven't been able to do it. So definitely an advantage they should have. And as you know, team goes as Haliburton goes. 25-3, 20 points when he scores 20. Similar numbers when he gets a double-double. So I think he's going to be rocking and ready to go. And that's a good point. How do they guard him?
Well, and he's maybe not healthier. He wasn't like banged up going into the playoffs last year, but he certainly has more momentum, I think, health and performance-wise than he did last year. at this time. And what he have in Milwaukee game 1 last year, 7 points on 5 shots or something, where everybody's like, what is going on? And I bet that's a thing again this year. I don't want to like call this an excuse or anything, but he's certainly a feel out of series and matchup kind of guy. And I bet his game 2s are all better than his game 1s, or mostly better, which is not necessarily on its own a bad thing unless it's literally preventing them from winning. But on the other hypothetical is the Bucks say, okay, yeah, this is true. This is a terrifying problem for us. Let's start better defenders. Okay, that's great, but like their bench has been awesome. If they weaken that to potentially slow the Pacers down, that might work. If it doesn't work, or it gives the Pacers their depth advantage back from last year, it's a different challenge. I still think that might be something they turn to quickly in this series, is getting Gary Trent on the floor to open games, especially if Dame comes back at some point. But I have a hard time figuring out exactly how they'll match up in those backcourt moments. And like, someone is going to have an advantage if it's not Haliburton. Like if they're trying to get 2 to him, like Nesmith can drive now. Like was he been a 17 points per game scorer since the break or something like that? Nembhard shooting has not been good, but it was in the playoffs last year, and he can really get into the paint. I just wrote about him today. Like somewhere there's going to be a hole to try to poke at and force the Bucks to rotate, switch, or whatever. They put Smalls on Siakam and switches all the time this year. I don't know if they can do that in the playoffs. Pacers have got to be ready to get him the ball in those moments. So I am very fascinated by how all that's going to shake out, and if the Bucks or Pacers adjust to it.
Yeah, the whole chess match of a playoff series, especially with these two longtime coaches, and the rivalry that's heated up since last year, obviously, but just from half to half, but even more so game to game, just how different it's going to be. Haliburton goes off and they mix it up the next game. First game or two with Lillard out, how do the Pacers try to limit the Greek Freak as much as they can? And then what does that do for other, openings? Pacer fans that probably know that Lopez and Trent are guys that at times can have torched them in the past.
Yep.
Will they be able to do enough to support Giannis in those moments? Or, but yeah, the whole chess match of it and the adjustments being made will be very fascinating.
Everybody, short little break here to talk about Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time, and with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with the top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. You can find the right talent to help you with the marketing campaign. Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who can deliver incredible results. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, multiple qualified candidates to choose from right there for you. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now. Post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. All right, Tyler, your second advantage for the Pacers.
So I was looking at a lot of different stats and kind of lumping them together. Probably the most important one for me is that this season, of course, this can change in a playoff series, but this season, the Milwaukee Bucks are dead last in the NBA in offensive rebounding.
Ooh.
Now, the Pacers are not a good rebounding team themselves, as we know, but where they typically have the most problem is if a team is crashing the glass like crazy and getting second, third, fourth chance points. It's kind of demoralizing. Pacers want to get out and run. So if they're limiting Milwaukee, to just a handful of second chance opportunities, they're going to get out and run. They're going to play free. They're going to feel more like at home themselves and just how they want to play. Guys are getting the ball. They're just going to be flying up the court. Milwaukee's got a decent pace to them as well, but Pacers have a little bit more. And if they can limit that, they're going to move the ball. So that's a big one. I also saw Milwaukee's near the bottom in free throw percentage. And they are
one guy seems very responsible for that. Yes,
very much. Yep. And then a couple other things like Pacers are 8th in steals, Bucks are 23rd. Pacers are 3rd in assists, Bucks 18th. I mean, again, sometimes you can throw the stats out the window when rotations are limited and it's more focused in a playoff series. But at this point, you're looking for any kind of small advantage to exploit, and so some of those numbers to me stick out.
Yeah, Bucks second or worst offensive rebound rate in the league. The only team lower than the Pacers, ironically, is the Bucks, but they're second in defensive rebound rate. Right, their focus on the glass very much changes based on what end of the floor they're on. And so that possession battle part of it's something I've thought a lot about. And you got to the steals part, which I thought is the next part of this. Like, would you consider like mid-December to late January the best Pacers stretch of the season? I would.
For sure.
And that is when they were awesome in the possession battle, like every single night. They barely ever turned it over. They were awesome on the glass for a little bit there. Like they were just giving themselves extra chances. And for a team that has been top 7 in offense the last 2 years and had a great playoff offense last year, having extra chances is a very big deal. They have a very high effective field goal percentage as a team because they generate good shots all the time. So if they're able to hit the defensive glass and run in transition, and they're able to have those chances as much as they want because of steals or have more chances than the Bucks, that's great. They should be really happy about how that stylistically could give them an edge. It's obviously, look, the Bucks play that way because they want to. They're a good team, and they'll probably think, well, if we just hit the glass and score points and the Pacers can't get in transition, this is great. Look what happened in December. Like, that's true, but I do think that when the Pacers are at their best, those stats suggest that could happen potentially for them this series.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a team that is typically, as we've seen, played up to competition, played up to the moment.
Yes,
I'm kind of envisioning, like, if the Pacers have one of those like really off nights in this series, maybe it's because they're up 2-0 and they go to Milwaukee and lay an egg in Game 3 or something like that. But I just feel like in these moments, they know what's at stake. I think you could see both fan bases saying that, well, our advantage is the motivation. Milwaukee wants payback, and they got Giannis. Well, the Pacers are still out to prove doubters wrong. So there's so much at stake. They want to keep their season alive. Both teams have aspirations for a deep run. But absolutely right, that stretch where they were playing their best, December and especially January, it was phenomenal how well they were protecting the ball, even compared to what they typically do.
Yeah.
And looking for those moments to get out.
Yeah, that'll be huge. And like, if the Bucks win in December has always stuck in my brain just because the snowball happened, where it's zone defense stops the Pacers, Bucks score easily so they can set their zone. Like, that kind of stuff is hard if the Pacers are rebounding or getting stops or getting steals to run and prevent those zone defenses. So the possession battle will matter even in a style fight, like to prevent the Bucks from starting the snowball. And it might not even be easy to go zone in the playoffs if the Pacers are truly dialed in, but like, that's so easy to say. The Bucks could also just dial in their zone defense, and then it's hard to. So I'll be fascinated how that shakes out. The other stat thing that I'm very curious about is the pace of play. Like, I can tell you by looking at the advanced stats that the Bucks were 14th in pace. Yeah, I got that's right. Sorry. The Bucks were 14th in pace and the Pacers were 7th. But we all know from watching these teams which team wants to play much faster than the other one. Your rebounding stats kind of spell that out. When the Pacers should want to play fast. Their roster suggests that's the case. The Bucks added players who make them allowed to play faster than last year. Certainly, they have more athleticism and youth and pop, and that's great. But they also have some older, creakier guys on that team. Like last year, I called them creaky all the time. They're not at that level anymore. But I think that I think that a key thing in this series will be which team, whether that's because of the results of their plays or just the general focus they have in keeping that style, which team's speed of play can dictate the series is going to be huge. And the Pacers have had little trouble being able to play fast when they want to, but obviously that requires getting stops or getting steals or whatever they're going to do. So if they can't get stops, this won't be an advantage. But if they defend well enough, like they did for most of the season, I think their style can be an advantage because they will want to play fast. And the Bucks have not been slow, but have been more resistant to playing fast than some other teams the Pacers have played in the playoffs before.
Yeah, that'll be interesting too. And I think a lot of that will also depend on how games are starting.
Yes.
I think it was Haliburton that recently mentioned the importance of starting and closing basically each quarter. You could see one of those early runs from one of the teams, and that kind of dictates how things want to go from there. Whereas, maybe Milwaukee gets off to an early lead, and then it's just the pound, kind of pound game where they're just trying to slow it up a little bit and fit their pace. Officiating and begging for that to not dictate too much where one fan base or the other is blaming that, but it can obviously impact if it's being called a certain way.
Totally.
Early in the game, guys get in foul trouble, or even late, or from one game to the next is completely different. That can change a lot as well. But Pacers need to use that as an advantage. Whatever. I'm interested to see what they use for their rotation, if certain guys are in it or out of it. But regardless, I think they're going to play 94 feet defense, and they got guys that.
That's tough on Giannis, but they do
Yeah.
have to do it, I think.
Yeah. They got guys that just have so much energy typically, the Neesmiths and Toppins and Nimhards, like they need to use that to their advantage, even if it's ever so slightly.
I think, too, what will be key for the pace battle is who is important for the Pacers in a particular game changes based on the speed of the game, right? If it's a slower game, Mathurin has to be great in that kind of game. Siakam is fine in both settings, but he has to be great in a slow-paced game. TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin, the guys that you think of that can up the juice, they have to be at their best or better in a slower-paced game because, those guys thrive in high-tempo settings, but they are routinely able to shake up a game speed in a way that other guys on the Pacers can't. Whereas in a high-paced setting, it's the usual cast of characters. It's Tyrese Haliburton, it's Andrew Nembhard, it's Aaron Neesmith, even McConnell in those cases that have to be sensational and make sure that style remains, the ball movement remains, the air quotes random to us, not to them, style of offense is going. And that's what makes them hard to guard is they do a lot of concept things as opposed to just like set plays you can scout all the time. And that's great. That gives them a good floor to like never get destroyed in a series. Shout out to the Boston Celtics for actually doing that last year. I'm so glad Joe Mazzulla said it was their hardest series. So I can say, they got swept, but it was very hard for the Celtics still because they still set the terms of series, even when they might not be winning games or playing that well, but they have to be able to play the right guys for the right style of game. And they shouldn't want to be in a slower paced game where they're so reliant on Siakam and Mathurin getting into those tougher shots. They won games like that in March, but that's not when they're at their best to me.
What's funny is even before last year's run, a lot of what even national media would say is, this style is not going to work in the playoffs. It's a different game. You got to play defense. You got to slow it down. It absolutely worked. And now not all of them, but some of national media, when they're talking about this year's team, they're like, oh man, some of these teams do not want to see this team that runs and guns. Like I've even seen some comments about if the Pacers survive the first round, like Cleveland, that's tough to see that in the second round, that kind of speed and pace. So it's interesting how the Pacers have already kind of flipped that narrative at least a little bit.
I've mentioned it a million times. So after they beat the Knicks, Tyrese Haliburton said to a reporter who asked him about them not slowing down, he said, do you think we've slowed down? Do you think we should have slowed down? Like they were very proud of maintaining that speed and playing that way for multiple series last year, which I'll admit, like I thought they'd slow down a little bit. And the pace number said they did, but compared to everyone else, they still had a faster tempo. One more break, everybody. Let's talk about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account? Wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That is where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just simply managing your money and start building wealth. Many people start using Monarch and realize just how much they're spending on things like food delivery. Now they budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner can be smoother than ever as well. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off of your first year. Give me one more edge you see for the Pacers in this series.
Well, I think these are kind of connected, but the uncertainty of Dame Lillard, which the report we just saw, it seems like he could possibly be available when the series shifts back to Milwaukee. Not really sure as far as his ramp-up time. The Bucks have been playing really well even without him, but I just think it's a different animal. I think without him on the court, even though they have some other shooters, I think the Pacers can try more things to try to contain Giannis in those moments with Lillard off the court. And then it's kind of connected to the Pacers' depth. And, we've seen it kind of a mixed bag. We've seen some ups and downs for the Pacers' depth this year. And I'm not really sure about guys like Shepherd, Walker, Bryant. How much are they going to play? Are they going to play? What are they going to do? The Pacers need TJ McConnell to be what he was last year in the playoffs.
Yes,
as such an important piece.
Yes.
And, having Mathurin back will help. It's a different dynamic of last year's Bucks team compared to this one, obviously. But I just feel like if the Pacers are going to be successful, they're going to have to use that depth to their advantage. They need to protect that home court and win those first 2 games for if and when Lillard comes back in a game 3 and 4 situation. It's going to be tough. The Pacers don't want to be staring at a tie or even a deficit really at any point this series if they can help it. But Pacers need to one thing I've thought of as well is I think they need to find a way to have Haliburton or Siakam on the court typically the whole game if they can. They've sometimes even last year's playoffs they didn't do that, so I'm hoping to do that as part of the depth piece, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, the Dame part is so fascinating. Look, again, I'm after last year with Giannis, I'm not guessing. Like, I'll tell you when he's playing. The reporting is good for the Bucks today. I'm not going to guess. But I will say, like, everybody thought last year it was this big missed opportunity when the Pacers lost Game 5, right? Because he was out for that one in Milwaukee. And then he came back in Game 6 and the Pacers pummeled the Bucks. Now, what I'm not saying is they're worse with Dame. They're not. He's awesome. He had like 30 points in that Game 6 or something. But he talked about after the game, like, it was hard for him to play. And, even if he returns early in the series, that's not I am just guessing here. He could be awesome right away, but that's not a guarantee that he's like Dame Lillard, as you know. And that's why the start of the series is going to be so important. If there's a chance he's sub as good as he can be Dame, the Pacers have to play well in those games like they did in Game 6 last year to take advantage of that advantage to the point you just said. And I also agree with the depth thing. I mean, look, McConnell was like on the heater of his life last year, entering and in the playoffs. He started slow, but was great the rest of the postseason. But other than that, it's kind of like I believe Toppin will be good. We're about to talk about the front court. I don't know what to make of Mathurin. I think he'll play well. I think he will thrive in a more competitive environment. But the pace of the game, we talked about being important for the Pacers. He's like better when it's not as fast. And I don't know what they're going to do beyond that. It seems like they might need to go to Jarris just to put some size on Giannis in certain situations. But would they go to him? Would they go to Thomas Bryant? I think they should go to Jarris. I think Shepherd and Bryant will be out of the rotation. I think it's possible they just play 8, but I don't know. Rick played 10 in Game 1 last year. They also got smoked in that game. So I have no idea what to make of the depth. The bench has been so up and down this year, and the Bucks exposed the bench with their zone in December, and the Pacers' worst bench game of the year by 10 million miles with that loss in Milwaukee last month. So I don't know what to make of the depth, but I agree it needs to be an advantage. The Bucks bench has been really good of late.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
they've got plenty of depth themselves, especially with Portis coming back. It's just one of those things where, again, even if it's a slight advantage, and again, I would say McConnell's probably a bigger deal than what a lot of people even think. If he's even close to what we've seen, in big moments before, that's going to be a big boost. And if he's not, Pacers will have some things to figure out.
I agree 100%. And McConnell's like an elite isolation player last year. Where did that come from? I'm very curious about the front court matchups. Again, last year, this was like the story of the start of the series for the Pacers to me, because they started with Brook Lopez on Siakam, and then Siakam just went completely crazy and scored a bajillion points. And then they switched up the front court matchups. They didn't have Giannis, obviously. And then Myles Turner was great in Game 3 and 4, right? Like, there was always a hole for the Pacers to exploit. And the fact that they didn't play a backup 5, they played a lot of Portis and Lopez as their centers. Portis will probably play a lot. If they play like Giannis Portis or whatever, like, they could go Toppin at the 5. The Pacers can. Giannis changes things. There's not going to be like last year, like a matchup advantage in the way there was for the Pacers sometimes last season. Like Gallinari was playing. That's not happening again. But I will be fascinated, and I think there can be either, in Siakam's case, a speed advantage, or in Turner's case, a shooting advantage in the front court somewhere. It's up to the Pacers to figure out which guy it is, how much that guy should screen and be involved. But there will be either a size, if it's Portis, speed, if it's Lopez, or spacing, if it's Turner, advantage for the Pacers in that front court. And Lopez and Portis are good players, to be clear. I'm not saying this is like a matchup on matchup edge Pacers huge, but that will be a way for the Pacers to start possessions or think about the matchups in a way like with Haliburton that could get them going into what they want to run. And I think that is an advantage for the Pacers to exploit, is figuring out what that edge is.
Yeah, you said it. In any scenario, there's got to be something there. I like that the Pacers have had this time off. I'm sure they're working on every scenario possible. Even having the last couple games that didn't mean as much in the regular season, and then this, little over a week off to prepare, and getting to do it with those traffic patterns here at home. So that's important as well. And it's a thing too. Like when you watch regular season games and you're thinking, oh, they're down 10, up 15, doesn't really matter. It's fourth quarter, we'll see what happens. Like every possession means so much. That's something that multiple players have said that they learned the most from. Every single possession matters. Hopefully that includes the mismatch or the tweaks that they make in game, if they can make those quickly to eliminate those. Oh, there's another 10-0 Bucks run, another angry Carlisle timeout. They gotta make sure that they find those advantages quickly.
The Carlisle rage timeout, iconic. I feel like it's always the second quarter. It's not, but it feels like it's always the second quarter to me. I'm endlessly fascinated by this front court matchup, and Obi Toppin could be like a huge answer to this, because there's been a lot of games of late where he comes in and either because they changed the rotational pattern, he ups the speed of the game in a way that helps the Pacers, or he's just like making every shot he takes. And so his defense is not good. Like he cannot be the guy they put on Giannis, even if there's a lot of help defenders. Like it doesn't matter who the one guy on Giannis is. It's going to be many guys all the time, but he needs to play probably backup 5 and 4 in the series, and he's going to be a helpful player. Obi Toppin is good, but there will be some front courts where I'm like, oh, it's going to be tough to keep Toppin out there for a long time right now, and that's going to be a tough rotational balance for the Pacers to figure out. Maybe those are the Jarris minutes. This is such a fascinating series. It's so different than last year. Like it's still the rivalry, but I don't know how you feel, but I feel like it feels so different than last year.
Yeah, it's so different from both sides, and just the fact of Pacers having that experience. That's a cool thing too, that is kind of odd over the years now. Like this team actually has experience, and so they kind of know what to expect. But going up against a different animal this time, the East is pretty front loaded, pretty stacked. I mean, kind of the sad thing to think, this Pacers team in some different years, like you feel like would have a much better chance. They still have a chance right now. But man, it's going to be tough even in round one, and if they get past that one. But Bucks probably feel the same way.
I agree. It's fascinating. I don't know if you feel this way. Last year, it felt like everybody nationally was picking the Bucks because a lot of people thought Giannis would return, and Milwaukee coverage was positive for the Bucks. But again, Giannis was out, and everybody in Indy was like, "Yeah, we think the Pacers can win because they were really great in the regular season and are playing decently." And then the Pacers won. And this year, it feels like nationally everybody's picking the Pacers. People in Milwaukee are picking the Bucks, and everybody in Indy's like, yeah, this is going to be tough. This is going to be harder than last year. It's so fascinating how much that experience part of it and people seeing the Pacers do it has kind of changed the perception of how people feel about the series, beyond obviously that Giannis is playing this time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm interested to see if the Dame news kind of shifts people at all.
I agree.
But I know for a lot of people that I've talked to, including myself, I'm still leaning Pacers. Gets a lot tougher if Dame is in there. And again, we don't know what kind of version of him it'll be. But I expect a very deep war kind of series that we're here for. This is what it's all about. We're excited to have it all start Saturday.
I'm picking Pacers 7. I don't know if you're going to go say your full pick, but even with Dame playing 5 games, I would pick that, but it will be very hard.
Yep, I was kind of leaning like I feel like it's in 5 or 7, much more likely 7, and I'm going to go for that, and that would be wild if that May 4th date is a Game 7 between these two teams.
Once again, a long Pacers-Bucks first-round series. Tyler, this was wonderful. Thank you for joining me today. Where can people find you and your coverage of the Pacers and this upcoming series?
IndySportsLegends.com and Twitter, TylerSmith_ISL.
He's there at every game, the master himself. We'll be back tomorrow. It'll be just me previewing a little bit of Game 1, things that I will be very, very curious about as it sets the tone for the rest of the series. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you very soon.